Good morning. This is Ian Doyle, Board President of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy. I will now call this meeting of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy to order. Today is day 2 of our June meeting. Today is Thursday, June 13th, 2024, and it is 8:30 a.m. Board of Pharmacy meetings are conducted in accordance with Oregon Public Meetings Law. Under the Public Meetings Law, governing body meetings are open to the public except as otherwise provided by law. The presiding officer has the authority to keep order and impose any reasonable restrictions necessary for the efficient and orderly conduct of the meeting. Governing bodies are authorized by ORS 192.660 to meet in executive session in certain limited situations, including the consideration of information obtained by a health regulatory board as part of an investigation of a licensee or applicant conduct. All official actions by the board must be taken by public vote, and the vote of each member must be recorded. We remind ourselves of the mission of the Board of Pharmacy at the day's start at each meeting. The Oregon Board of Pharmacy serves to promote and protect public health, safety, and welfare by ensuring high standards in the practice of pharmacy and through effective regulation of the manufacture and distribution of drugs. We also will now be reciting our equity statement, which has been newly developed. The Oregon Board of Pharmacy is committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, also known as EIB, within its organization and for the public it serves. This commitment is reflected in board membership, agency staffing, the services provided, and its efforts to promote patient safety and ensure access to quality pharmacy care. Our actions outlined in our EIB and affirmative action plans demonstrate this commitment. The following principles guide our approach: promote a welcoming, safe, and inclusive culture for people of all backgrounds, foster an inclusive environment where all current and prospective licensees and registrants receive fair and unbiased service from the agency staff and board. Advance diversity and equity in access through culturally responsive service delivery that addresses the changing climate within the pharmacy profession. And to ensure all patients needing pharmacy services are able to receive safe and timely access to medications, regardless of place of residence, economic or social status, physical ability, ethnicity, or gender identity. I will now call roll for board and staff. For the record, when I call your name, please verbally acknowledge here. Board President Ian Doyle here. Board Vice President Kat Chin. Here. Board Member Shannon Beeman. Here. Board Member Rachel DeBarmore. Here. Board Member Jennifer Hall. Here. Board Member Rosemary Hemmons. Present. Board Member Rich Joyce. Here. Board Member Priyal Patel. Here. Chief Compliance Officer Joe Ball. Here. Strategic Initiatives Manager Chelsea Dasher. Here. Pharmacy Consultant Jennifer Davis. Here. Compliance Director Brianne Efremoff. Here. Executive Director Melody Fox. Here. Licensing Director Chrissy Hennigan. Here. Operations Manager Rachel Melvin. Here. Board Counsel Rachel Bertoni. Here. It is noted that Board Member Hall is anticipated to leave today's meeting at approximately 3 p.m. and Board Member Hemmons will be leaving the meeting approximately 3:30 p.m. There will be an opportunity for public comment on Friday afternoon. The board will not deliberate any issues or requests during public comment, such as formal requests, issues currently under investigation, requests pending before the board, or currently proposed rules. Public comment is limited to matters that were noticed in the board meeting agenda. Comments will not be allowed that are longer than the time allotted by the chair. To sign up for public comment, please email your request to pharmacy.board@bop.oregon.gov by 12 p.m. on Friday, June 14th, 2024. With regard to housekeeping and etiquette, when board members are done providing comment, bend your microphone away as a signal that you have completed your statement. That will help me process organization of the meeting. Board proceedings utilize Robert's rules, modified parliamentary procedures, We will continue to facilitate board discussions using the round robin method. I will continue to utilize a board member checkoff list to ensure each board member has been called upon and has equal time to provide comments. If during your turn you want to ask questions, please direct your question to Executive Director Fox so that he can immediately respond or delegate to another. Exemptions to this path would be if, for example, you had specific questions for pharmacist consultant Davis while she was actively seeking feedback on a proposed rule. When you have finished speaking, please indicate as such as bending the microphone backwards so I do not accidentally misinterpret your pause and call on the next board member too soon. In order to complete board member agenda items in both executive and open session, each board member will have 3 minutes to provide comments. In the portion of our board meeting labeled matters to be discussed by the board that will occur at the end of the meeting on Friday, we've set aside 30 minutes to allow each board member set aside 30 minutes in total to allow each board member an opportunity to provide feedback, ideas, or topics for discussion for future board meetings. Board and agency staff, please identify yourself as a board or staff member, followed by your last name each time you speak. Silence all your devices. It's extremely important that board members speak just one at a time and directly into the microphone. Please also limit side conversations as they interfere with the recording. Raise your hand if you have questions or comments. You'll be called upon as soon as possible. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and retained for public meeting record purposes. In the event of an emergency, please follow board staff directions and exit the building with our group to a centralized meeting area. The restrooms are located on this floor of the meeting room, located past the elevators and to the right. We will begin this morning with mailing A as an alpha, review of rulemaking hearing report and comments with staff member Melvin.
All right, good morning, staff member Melvin. Again, this is mailing A. Board members Doyle and Joyce and staff members Davis and myself attended the rulemaking hearing on 5/22/2024. 4 people joined the public call to listen. No participants signed up to provide oral testimony during the hearing. We received 2 written comments during the open comment period, and they have been provided to the board in their entirety. On 4/17/2024, we sent out the public notice for the rulemaking hearing to 4,727 interested parties. They were also invited to sign up to provide oral testimony during the virtual hearing and encouraged to email their written comments to pharmacy.rulemaking@bop.oregon.gov. And they also had an opportunity just to simply call in and listen to the hearing. Back to you, board president, for board discussion.
There any board members that wish to make any comments with regard to mailing a review rulemaking hearing reports or comments? Just raise your hand. Board member Joyce.
This board member Joyce. So I did see in one of the written comments that there was inquiries about having an intern and an RDSP. What do we? I'd like to. Is there an opportunity to discuss that sometime today, or because that was one of the written comments?
There's opportunity to talk about that. There was specifically an SBAR in mailing D as in Delta, I believe, that will have an opportunity to talk about that.
Okay, and that's what I was thinking as well. So I did see the 2 comments seem to be relevant to today's discussion. Then, so thank you.
Staff member Mellon. So to correct the record, we did not have RDSP Division 139 rules at the May rulemaking hearing. So you're referring to a different mailing. Okay, thank you.
Not seeing any other hands raised. I believe we're finished making board discussion with regarding to this topic. Is there a motion to accept the May 22, excuse me, is there a motion to accept the May 22nd, 2024 rulemaking hearing report?
Member Chin moves.
For a second,
Board Member Joyce second.
there's been a move and a second, so I will now call roll to approve or accept the May 2024 rulemaking hearing report. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
Board Member Beeman,
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons,
Yes.
Board Member Joyce,
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
The motion passes. We will now review and consider draft rules for adoption with staff member Melvin. It's mailing B and then Bravo.
Okay. All right, so for the board's consideration today, again, this is mailing B. This is related to Division 115, Pharmacist in Charge Qualifications and Limitations, OAR 855-115-0200. And this would propose to repeal the language that you are seeing on your screen right now. And back to you for discussion, President Doyle.
Board Member Doyle speaking, thank you. We'll go around in a round robin just to see if there are any questions or comments. We begin with Board Member Chin.
No comments.
Member Doyle,
No comment.
Member Patel,
Comments.
Member Hammond.
Yes. Board Member Hemmons, why are we repealing this?
Yes, staff member Melvin, board member Hemmings, the rule summary for this particular repeal, it proposes to repeal the rule effective upon filing. The board adopted 855-115-0205 in December 2023, and it became effective 3/1/2024, which replaces this rule. We cannot have a duplicate rule.
Member Hemmons, thank you.
Member DeBarmore,
Comment.
Member Hall,
Member Hall, no comment.
Member Bean,
Comment.
or Member Doyle, I don't have any questions. Is there a motion to move to repeal proposed rule OAR 855-115-0200 to be effective upon filing?
So moved. Board Member Chin.
Seconded, Board Member Joyce.
Moved by Board Member Chin, seconded by Board Member Joyce. And I'll call roll to repeal proposed rule OAR 855-115-0200 effective upon filing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
Board Member Beeman,
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore,
Yes.
Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons,
Yes.
Board Member Joyce,
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll now move to speaking about handout B1, Bravo 1.
Staff member Melvin, this is related to Division 115, Pharmacist Services, prescribing the formulary and protocol compendium related to OAR 855-115-0340 and 855-115-0345. And this also contains a list of all of those items on the protocol and formulary. Let's see, and the summary for this particular, well, for 115-0340, it proposes to add the continuous glucose monitors and related supplies to the formulary compendium. On the second rule, 115-0345, it proposes to add new versions. It proposes to remove pseudoephedrine, and it adds new versions, I'm sorry, of vaccines and a new STI PEP protocol. And I believe staff member Davis would like to speak specifically to travel medication. So give me just a moment, please.
We have one small correction, minor correction that we just want to make the board aware of based on feedback. We have a feedback form for the protocols. And this came in, it's very minor. It's mailing B1E on travel medications under the assessment pathway. It refers to scopolamine as 1 milligram. And that is correct. I don't know where it's at, somewhere in here, just keep going till you find, I did highlight it on the Word version, but not on this version.
In a Word version.
There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
As a 1.5 milligram, that's causing some confusion because it's a 1.5 milligram scopolamine base that delivers 1 milligram over 3 days. So like when a pharmacy looks up this drug in the pharmacy computer system, it may be listed as 1.5 or it may be listed as 1 milligram. It's the same thing. So we just wanted to add that clarification. That's a 1.5 milligram base that delivers 1 milligram.
Member Hemmings?
Member Hemmings, so is that the same as, say, something is slow release and it releases 1 milligrams over a period of time? Is that what that is referring to?
For Davis?
I'm an expert on scopolamine patches, but yes, you put a patch behind your ear when you're usually traveling and it releases over 72 hours, the medication.
But it's administered at 1.5 milligrams.
It is a 1.5 milligram base that delivers 1 milligram over the 3 days.
Happens to the 0.5.
It never is released out of the patch from my understanding, but any other pharmacists, feel free to jump in.
Why not just make it a 1 milligram? I did 1.5. See why it's confusing.
Some manufacturers label it as 1.5 and then some label it as 1 milligram, which causes some confusion to pharmacists. They think they can't use what they have on their shelf and they can. It's just one manufacturer will use the base on their labeling and one manufacturer will use what it actually delivers.
So board member Hammond, so are you proposing to include the highlighted section or remove it?
We're adding the highlighted section. That's new language. Because previously it was 1.5, and I'd say the majority of manufacturers use 1 milligram, which was causing some confusion.
Sorry.
There you go.
Any other board questions? Hearing and seeing none, staff member Davis or staff member Melvin?
Nothing additional to add. Back to you for discussion.
Board member Doyle, question first. Staff member Melvin, again, board discussion is around OAR 1150340 and OAR 1150345. But those are inclusive of the formularies themselves. So if board members have any questions, it would be inclusive of this whole B as in Bravo package.
Yes, correct.
We begin doing a round robin with board member Joyce. Questions, concerns, comments?
Board member Joyce, I don't see anything that pops out to me this time.
Member Patel,
No comments?
member Hemmings,
Board member Hammond, yes, I have a lot to say.
please continue.
And something.
Remember DeBarnwell, remember Hall,
No comments.
remember Bean. Yeah. Board member Doyle was taking a moment to reconcile managing the meeting and my own questions. Question for member Davis or board member, sorry, staff member Davis or staff member Melvin. I recall that during previous conversation, there was an age concern about age 13 versus other age for some of these protocols. And that was going to be looked in at a later time. The age of consent, they, and the reporting back to, responsible entities, pharmacists are mandatory reporters. I'm just clarifying if that's on the doc that has been reviewed or that's on the docket to, look at more later.
Please give us just a moment to discuss with board council.
So A, if you were Tony, I understand that there's been prior advice related to some of the issues with 13-year-olds. I am not prepared to speak to that in detail today. If that's something they'd like more briefing on, I would ask that we table this item and allow me to do the necessary research. I don't want to go. I have learned in my career that if I go off the cuff on complicated issues, I inevitably regret it. So I don't want to give you off the cuff advice, and I certainly want to evaluate whether the prior advice, and if there's some public advice, and if there's prior confidential advice, and privileged advice. I want to evaluate those before I choose to subscribe to them.
Board Member Hemmons, I see that you want to talk. If we can continue the round robin, I'll come back to you. Board Member Chin,
I have no comment, thank you.
Member Hemmons.
Member Hemmings, I just wanted to clarify, what you were referring to. Because I remember the conversation, was that related to the STD?
Board Member Doyle, yes, it came, the question of age, being able to treat with STI PrEP, for a person of as low of age as 13, that raised some associated concerns and other responsibilities that pharmacists may or may not have. And we are hearing today from Council Bertoni that she's could provide information on that at a later time. It's my intent at this meeting to clarify or question if that had been looked into, or is it something on a to-do list, if we will, that board staff is going to look into, or if it's not, I guess that we would be asking Council Bertoni or Council Hunt to look into that at a later time.
Board Member Hemmings, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that I was looking at the correct thing, because I was one of the board members who raised the concern. Thank you.
Board Member DeBarmore.
Board Member DeBarmore, thank you. And I can't remember if I asked this question last time, but for you other practitioners, is language of that nature in your practice about mandatory reporting or things like that included in your rules, or is it a standard, or you rely on rules in other areas of our laws?
That question to each.
To board member, Chin, board member.
This is board member Chin. My recollection is that there is language about being mandatory reporters, but I don't know that there's exact language, and I'd have to go back to rules to see what that is. I know that there are rules in other, like OEJ or somebody rules that state who are mandatory reporters, and we're required, we're under that rule. And so I don't know that it's specific. I don't know that it's specifically in our Vendors Practice Act, but I can look that up.
For Council Bertoni, she probably has some helpful information for us.
So there is a statute that identifies 4 mandatory reporters, and that applies regardless of what licensure group one is in. And then different licensing boards, I represent other licensing boards, so I have a little off the cuff experience in this area. They will have ethical standards that will require, like, social worker, am I correct? Will have ethical standards that require certain types of reports and will require certain types of disclosures even without the client's consent. And there's some nuances in that for different disciplines, as you can imagine. Because an attorneys are mandatory reporters under the law, but there's an exception. We don't report if we're doing criminal defense, our client comes and says, I molested a child, we don't report that, right? Because that would violate their right to defense counsel. You tell your lawyer what's happened. So there are nuances with different fields. Clergy and psychologists also have some nuances. But generally speaking, those laws apply. And the question is how the different boards apply them to their own licenses. It's an interesting topic that I will not go on about in any greater depth. I just have to ask the questions.
Member DeBarlo.
Okay, but this is board member DeBarne. The purpose of my question in that is I caution future boards members to take language that's already in other places and continue to place it within our rules. And other healthcare providers do not do so. It is not necessary to add additional words when they're already there. I think for our practice, and I understand pharmacists appreciate a protocol or whatnot, but when we continue to add and we create more words and in a protocol or whatnot, if we continue to add more and more and more, it just boxes things into this is the only way and this is an absolute. And if it's in the rule, if it's in a statute and a pharmacist is a mandatory reporter, it is a pharmacist's responsibility to understand that. We don't need to add more words into our regulations. I think, thank you.
Board Member Hemmings, the question was posed to you before. Do you have any response?
No.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Chin.
Board Member Chen, in response to Board Member DeBarmore, I appreciate that thought. As we expand the scope of pharmacists who haven't had the hat on of mandatory reporter, as much as maybe other healthcare professions who are doing patient care in that regard, not needing it in the rule, but maybe having as a suggestion while we're looking at rule is aware of your rules and mandatory reporting and or as that. And so put it in like that rather than all the details of something. So that's what I would hope maybe for as we're growing this role for pharmacy.
Board Member Doyle, recommended or action to that effect has already been taken in the protocols. It is noted that under different statute, there are mandatory reporting requirements. So there is a reminder there for practitioners. Any other questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, is there a motion to move to adopt proposed rules OAR 855-115-0340 and OAR 855-115-0345 to be effective upon filing?
So moved, Board Member Chen.
For a second.
Seconded, board member Joyce.
It's been motioned by board member Chin, seconded by board member Joyce, and now called roll to vote to adopt proposed rules OAR 855-115-0340 and OAR 855-115-0345 to be effective upon filing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin.
Yes.
Board Member Beeman.
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore. Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Hemmings.
Yes.
Board Member Joyce.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Member Patel opposed.
The motion passes with board member Patel opposed. Now, continue with board member Melvin speaking about package Bravo 2.
Thank you, Staff Member Melvin. This is B2. This is also related to Division 115 pharmacist services, prescribing practices for short-acting opioid antagonists. This is 855-115-0350. Get to the litigant summary. This proposes amending the existing rule by adding that the labeling exemption only applies to nasal sprays as stated in 2023 Senate Bill 450. And so you will see that proposed change in paren 2. Back to you, President Doyle, for discussion.
Member Doyle, thank you. Do any board members have any questions, comments, or concerns with package Bravo 2? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to move to adopt proposed rule OAR 855-115-0350 to be effective upon filing?
Moved by board member Beamer. Second board member Chin.
Motion has been moved by board member Beeman, seconded by Vice President Chin. I will now call roll for approving the adoption of proposed rule OAR 855-115-0350 to be effective upon filing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin.
Yes.
Member Beeman.
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore. Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Himmons. Board Member Joyce. Yes. Board Member Patel.
Yes.
That motion passes. Now move on to package Bravo 3, Division 120, Staff Member Mellon.
Thank you, Staff Member Melvin. This is related to Division 120 interns and preceptors, prohibited practices, 855-120-0150. And this proposes amending paren 1 little c by incorporating pharmacist or to allow a supervising pharmacist or a preceptor who is also fluent in the language being interpreted to communicate with a patient who prefers to communicate in a language other than English or who communicates in signed language without mandating the use of a healthcare interpreter registered by the Oregon Health Authority. Interns are only permitted to practice pharmacy under the supervision of a pharmacist or a healthcare preceptor with the practice of pharmacy within their scope. Scroll down just a little bit so you can see where we've added that. And back to you, Board President, for discussion.
We will now open discussion on the proposed rule. We begin with Board Member Patel.
Question or comments, right? Comments.
Board Member Himmons.
Remember Hammond's, so I'm a little bit confused regarding the use of the term interns and then pharmacists. Because when I read the first sentence, yeah, it's like a sentence. It's basically says to me that what we are saying is that we're allowing a supervising pharmacist or a preceptor was fluent in the language that is spoken by the patient to be able to communicate with the patient without the use of someone who is registered with OHA. Okay. That was all one sentence, actually. That part is clear to me. So where does, no, second sentence, interns come in? Are we also saying that an intern who also is fluent in the language spoken by the patient is also allowed to communicate with the patient in the patient's language without, without the use of, interpreter that is registered with OHA. I'm confused where the intern piece comes in.
Whoever it is.
Sure, so the language is that the intern, if the intern is a registered healthcare interpreter, then they can talk to the patient in their language, because they're already registered with the health authority. If they are fluent in the language, but they are not registered with the health authority, then their supervising pharmacist would also have to be fluent in the language, because it really falls on the pharmacist who's supervising the intern. So if I'm an intern and I speak Spanish and I'm registered with the health authority, I can talk to a patient in Spanish, for example. If I speak Spanish, but my supervising pharmacist does not, then I cannot communicate with the patient in Spanish unless I am registered with the health authority. That's what the point of this rule is, because we have a rule in the pharmacist division that allows them to speak directly to a patient without being registered with the health authority, as long as they're fluent in the language.
Okay, Board Member Hammond, so I think I understand why. So is it because the concern is if I am being supervised by someone, they need to be aware of what exactly it is that I am saying to the patient, because I'm being supervised by this person. And this person needs to understand and be able to hear that I am correctly communicating whatever information is being communicated to the patient. And if the supervisor does not speak that's, is not fluent in that language, then the supervisor has no idea whether or not the intern is actually conducting themselves in a manner that is appropriate. Is that the rationale?
Yes, you said that perfectly.
Okay. All right, so I get that, but the way it's written. Still confused, but because, okay. The wording, the frame, I don't get that, I would have to, interns are only permitted to practice pharmacy under the supervision of a pharmacist or held with the practice of pharmacy within their scope. So I have to, if I'm reading this, then I have to assume that means that I supervise. It doesn't say that the supervisor has to be fluent in the same language. It doesn't, I don't see, it doesn't say that, right? It doesn't say that supervisor has to be. No, it says it up top, but in reference to the intern. Right?
Board Member Doyle, the opening prologue to 855-120-0150 is an intern must not. And so, and then under subsection para C, they must not communicate unless the supervising pharmacist or preceptor is also fluent in the language. The only
I'm missing that then.
That's what I was trying to clarify. This is a subsection of what you were saying. Or
Member Doyle, and technically the only rule change that we're making here is the addition of the word pharmacist or, because it was previously identified by the public that we had limited to only the preceptor, who happens to be a pharmacist, to be working with said intern, but an intern can work with a preceptor who is a pharmacist, and also a pharmacist who is not the primary preceptor, but is providing preceptor services. And so this expands, the rule change expands the number of supervisory persons that can who are fluent in the language to help the intern provide these types of communication services.
Member Hammonds, thank you for that. And I am assuming that the use of the term fluent is left up to the individual's judgment as to whether they feel they're fluent in the language or not.
Board Member Doyle, yes, and or they have been certified by that tertiary agency that Staff Member Davis had mentioned before.
They don't have to be.
Correct.
Certified. Okay. The other question that I have, Board Member Hemmings, is where does, and maybe this is something else, what about pharmacy techs? Does this also apply?
Board
Now,
Member
so
Davis,
this is only referring to counseling.
this is only referring to what an intern cannot do.
Okay.
This is a subsection of the intern requirements or disallowances.
Okay.
Member DeBarmo,
No comment.
Member Beaman,
No comment.
Board Member Doyle, I was going to also, because we had some public comment in our public comment responses about this rule, I was also going to address similarly my concerns about conflict of interest if interns they're fluent but not the pharmacist or the preceptor, and that would create some difficulties in helping the intern be able to effectively deliver correct and accurate information. Board Member Chin,
No comment.
Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, so I just wanted to address like the intern, we're presuming the intern is bilingual and speaking to the patient to be counseled in let's say Spanish. And so we're expanding from preceptor to supervising pharmacist. That portion of it for them to also be able to speak the language of the patient. However, I feel that requiring pharmacists or requiring the preceptor to speak the language, I understand there's patient safety, and there's also the skill level of the intern to be able to communicate effectively. That may cause a barrier, and it may be limiting healthcare access if we can only allow if we exclude, if we're specific to the pharmacist or preceptor, has to know or has to be fluent in that language. So in other words, there's no real interpretation being done by the intern. They're just speaking the language of the patient, and the communication with the pharmacist could be in English, but needing the pharmacist or the preceptor to speak the same language, that to me is a barrier, access barrier. So I understand the language, or I understand the intent of this. Just feel that it may be a barrier to make it so that the pharmacist and preceptor or preceptor has to know the language. Just an opinion.
Member Hall, my apologies, I accidentally skipped over you. What comments do you have?
Okay, Board Member Hall. I didn't have any comments, but after hearing what Board Member Joyce said, that did cross my mind. I mean, you know, when we're precepting interns, you get to know how much they can do, and you kind of let them start working on their own more, and being more independent. You're not hearing every single word they say to the patients, so that would make sense. But, let the pharmacist or preceptor decide if the intern, and it does seem like a barrier in a way.
But Board Member Doyle, this is a rule that has came to us last time we sent it to rulemaking. We're only able to vote on whether or not we want to add pharmacists or not. And if there's board direction to staff to consider opening up the intern aspect at a future time, then we can do that. But I just want to make sure that we're focused on, the vote will be the only thing that we can do is add the pharmacist, language to this. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, is there a motion to move to adopt proposed rule 855-120-0150 to be effective upon filing?
Board Member Chin,
A second,
Board Member Hall,
been motion by Board Member Chin, seconded by Board Member Hall. I will now call a roll vote to approve proposed rule 855-120-0150 to be effective upon filing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
yes.
Board Member Beeman.
Yes.
Member DeBarman, Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons,
Yes.
Board Member Joyce,
Abstain.
Member Patel,
To
Closed.
the motion passes with Board Member Joyce abstained and Board Member Patel opposed. Now move on to speaking about package Bravo 4, Division 020. Staff Member Melvin.
Give me just a moment. All right, again, staff member Melvin, this is B4. This is related to Division 20, which was Pharmacist Prescriptive Authority Protocol Compendium. This is a proposed repeal. Just a moment. This would permanently repeal OAR 855-020-0300 Protocol Compendium. The board adopted Division 115 pharmacist rules that became effective March 1st, 2024, which replaces Division 20. OAR 855-115-0345 includes the current versions of the protocols. Back to you, President Doyle, for discussion.
Member Doyle, thanks, Staff Member Melvin. Are there any board questions, comments, or concerns with the action of repealing this OAR? Seeing none, is there a motion to move to repeal proposed rule OAR 855-020-0300 to be effective upon filing?
by Board Member Beeman.
A second,
Good, Board Member Joyce.
motion has been made by Board Member Beeman, seconded by Board Member Joyce. I will now call a roll vote to approve the repeal of proposed rule 855-020-0300 to be effective upon filing. President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
Board Member Beeman,
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore, Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons,
Yes.
Board Member Joyce,
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now we'll move on to package Bravo 5. A variety of different divisions under considerations, standards adopted by reference. Staff Member Melvin or Staff Member Davis?
Staff member Melvin. Again, this is B5. This is related to Division 6, 41, 43, 45, 80, 115, 120, 135, 139, 141, related to standards adopted by reference. Just a moment. The rule summary is going to be very similar for every one of these, which we discussed at the last board meeting, but this just proposes to amend the referenced versions of the USC, USP, the HPUS, and the amendments are required per ORS 183-337 and pursuant to ORS 475-035 and 055. That's for our first in Division 6. So, okay, I think in the interest of time, I'm not gonna read every rule summary for every one of these because it's very long. I'm gonna turn it back to you for board discussion and see if the board has questions. Thank you.
Member Doyle, thank you, Staff Member Melvin. Are there any board members who have discussion, questions, concerns with regards to the changes to these OARs where we're just updating the reference standards that we use for the respective rules? I do not see any, so is there a motion to move to adopt proposed rules OAR 855-006-0005, OAR 855-041-1046, OAR 855-041-1092, OAR 855-041-1145, OAR 855-041-7050, OAR 855-043-0545, OAR 855-043-0740, OAR 855-045-0200, OAR 855-045-0205, OAR 855-080-0020, OAR 855-080-0021, OAR 855-080-0022, OAR 855-080-0023, OAR 855-080-0024, OAR 855-080-0026, OAR 855-080-0028, OAR 855-080-0031, OAR 855-080-0065, OAR 855-080-0070, OAR 855-080-0075, OAR 855-080-0085, OAR 855-115-0125, OAR 855-120-0005, OAR 855-135-0001, OAR 855-139-0145, OAR 855-139-0350, OAR 855-139-0460, and OAR 855-141-0350 to be effective upon filing.
Move Board Member Hall.
For a second,
Board Member DeBarmore.
there's been a motion by Board Member Hall, seconded by Board Member DeBarmore, and I'll call roll vote to adopt the programs as previously read. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
Board Member Beeman, Board Member DeBarmore, Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons,
Yes.
Board Member Joyce.
Yes.
Board Member Patel.
Yes.
Motion passes. We now move to package Bravo 6, Division 115, Staff Member Melvin.
Thank you, Staff Member Melvin. This is Division 115, Pharmacist Responsibilities Outlet, Delegation of Final Verification relating to OAR 855-115-0130. The proposed amendment adds the word drug and removes the word form from the rule 855-115-0130 paren 3. The current rule permits a pharmacist to delegate final verification of a drug dosage form to a technician. ORS 689-703 does not permit final verification of the drug dosage form by a technician. Back to you, President Doyle, for board discussion.
Board Member Doyle, thank you. Staff Member Melvin. Are there any board members with questions or comments regarding this proposed rule? Board Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, yeah, I appreciate this clarity in the language. it, makes it more clear, adding form.
Correction, it's not adding form.
I'm sorry, taking out form, updating it.
Remember Doyle to be in line with the statute allowances. The board member questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to move to adopt proposed rule OAR 855-115-0130 to be effective upon filing?
So moved, board member Chin.
For a second?
Seconded, board member Joyce.
Been a motion by board member Chin, seconded by board member Joyce. So now I'll call roll vote to approve the adoption of proposed rule OAR 855-115-0130 to be effective upon filing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
board member Beeman, board member DeBarmore,
Yes.
board member Hall,
Yes.
or Hemmons,
Yes.
board member Joyce,
Yes.
board member Patel.
Yes.
Motion passes. Staff member Davis.
Staff member Davis, I believe that concludes the review of the mailings that went through the rulemaking hearing. That would have us moving on to further rules discussion. Board, agency staff, I guess I just got asked to do this. Would like to request a July 23rd, 2024 rulemaking hearing. So that we can, the board can motion to send some rules today, your C mailings and any other rules that might come up throughout the meeting to rulemaking in July rather than waiting for our normal November, to give this some expedited, because during the April board meeting, at least 2 of the packages that we'll be reviewing, you had asked to bring these as quickly as possible to move them through. So just wanted approval to go ahead and have a July 23rd, 2024 rulemaking hearing.
Board member Doyle, is it anticipated that that would be using Teams for an online meeting?
Staff member Melvin, yes, currently all rulemaking hearings are virtual.
So for the reasons stated by staff, is there a motion to have an additional rulemaking hearing to expedite rulemaking on July 23rd, 2024?
So moved, board member Chin.
Is there a second?
Seconded, board member Joyce.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll now call roll to approve the addition of a rulemaking hearing on July 23rd, 2024. Board member President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
board member Beeman, board member DeBarmore, board member Hall,
Yes.
board member Hemmons,
Yes.
board member Joyce,
Yes.
board member Patel.
Yes.
It passes. Turn it back over to staff member Davis.
Staff member Davis, we're headed into policy discussion, so this will be mailing C for those on the phone. I'm going to apologize, I'm having an attack of the allergies, so I may sneeze or cough. I will move away from the microphone to minimize the disruption as much as possible, but you may hear gaps as I have to step away, so I don't echo. The board is conducting its first review of a proposed rule amendment to modify the mileage limitation in OAR 855-139-0200. At today's board meeting, the board will consider sending a permanent rule amendment to the July 2024 rulemaking hearing and potentially adopt in August to be permanently effective upon filing. The board discussed this request that was made by a current registrant to amend this rule at the April 2024 board meeting and provided direction to agency staff to bring back options for board consideration. The options contemplate 5 different scenarios. I will say that your direction came before we received a petition that included this same rule. So for this discussion, I have limited my comments to what was held at the April board meeting, and not particularly like the petitioner's feedback and comments on the petition. So here's your 5 options. You know, there might be more, but these were the 5 that we settled on. So an RDSP affiliated pharmacy must be less than 112 miles apart via the shortest surface street route from the RDSP. That's the current rule. And then we have option 2-1. And this option would remove the mileage limit entirely. This would mean that the RDSP affiliated pharmacy could be located anywhere in the US. It could be in New Jersey, Florida, Iowa, anywhere without a mileage limitation. For 2-2, option 2, this option places the mileage limitation on the supervising pharmacist rather than the physical location of the RDSP affiliated pharmacy. So it reads the pharmacist providing supervision, direction, and control of the RDSP and personnel for the RDSP affiliated pharmacy must be located less than 120 miles apart. Option 2-3 is to increase the mileage limitation to 200 miles. Of states that have a mileage limitation, 200 miles is the highest. This limitation is in the Iowa rules and is coupled with the requirements that the affiliated pharmacy be located in the state of Iowa. 2-4 as a 4th option is to add a requirement for the affiliated pharmacy to be located in Oregon, similar to Iowa's restriction. But upon reviewing this rule option, AAG Bertoni identified that she would like to comment on this option. So I'm going to hand it over to AAG Bertoni.
AAG Bertoni, very briefly, with option 2-4, if the board is interested in exploring that option, I'd ask for an opportunity for DOJ to give you some constitutional review. There's a constitutional provision which is best called the Dormant Commerce Clause, which implicates cases where states disfavor residents of other states. So, which I think is potentially implicated by option 4. So if you're not planning to move on option 4, it really doesn't matter. But if you are very interested in option 4, I'd ask that you give us the opportunity to give you the privileged advice around constitutional implications. Thank you.
So there are a number of variations the board can consider. You can have no mileage limit, but have a requirement to be in the state, possibly. Like you can pick and choose. You have a mileage requirement for the pharmacist, you know, like pick from the options here. Finally, there's a 5th option, finding on the next page apparently. That is to put the waiver in rule. Over the past few years, the board has been eliminating waivers in rule as the waivers lacked the criteria by which the waiver would be approved. However, waivers are permissible in rule as long as the explicit criteria by which the approval would be granted are contained in the rule. So this option was crafted based on the current request that came to the board in April 2024 to change this rule, which was made by Managed Healthcare. So paren 3 would be a new rule, and it would read, upon written request, the board may grant in writing a waiver to paren 2, which is the mileage limitation, if the following parameters are met. Paren A, the RDSP is co-registered as a retail drug outlet pharmacy. Paren B, the RDSP operates as a retail drug outlet pharmacy at least 50% of the location's operating hours. And paren C, the RDSP affiliated pharmacy demonstrates that the waiver will further public health or safety or the health of the safety of a patient. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Board President Doyle, for discussion on what options the board is interested in pursuing.
Member Doyle, thank you for the presentation. So the question at hand is with regard to oversight of the technician working at the RDSP, what proximity or process can there be in place for either the pharmacist or the affiliated pharmacy? We've begin discussion with Board Member Hemmons. You have a preference of 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, or number 3.
Board Member Hemmons, no.
No preference, is that correct?
Prefer.
Member DeMarco?
Board member DeMarmore. To allow for the opportunity for as much access as possible. Provide for innovation and the ability for people to come up with their best models. I'm in favor of 2.1.
Confirm I heard correctly, you said 2-1, which is the elimination of the rule.
A limitation.
Member Hall?
Member Hall. I was thinking anywhere in Oregon or at least the affiliated pharmacy 200 miles away from the RDSP.
Member Beeman?
Excuse me, Staff Member Melvin, Board Member Hull, I'm so sorry, because we have 200 miles on both your choices. 2, 3, and 2, 4. I'm sorry, which one?
Well, it's not up there.
Oh,
I mean, I want it anywhere in Oregon. Or, I mean, what about like Vancouver, Washington, it's right there. But if you're not in Oregon, and at least 200 miles away from the affiliated pharmacy.
The AG percentage, what might mean is ballot version 4, but with an or. The affiliated farming must be located in Oregon or must be located less than 220 miles.
There's the same.
Member Beeman?
Come back to me, please.
This is Board Member Doyle. I believe at this time, because RDSPs, are affiliated pharmacies, are new and we have limited number of them. I think that there's still needs to be some assurance for patient safety that a responsible party can get to the site quickly if there's a malfunction or an issue. I can't promulgate all the different issues that could potentially happen at an RDSP, which is staffed by a pharmacy technician. I believe that the best choice is going with 2.2, where the pharmacist is located within 120 miles or approximately 2 hours to get to the site to address it. It limits the brick and mortar aspect of proximity. It could allow the employment of a pharmacist locally to where that RDSP is, or potentially serving at another pharmacy, except where the affiliated pharmacy is much farther away. So, again, in summary, 2.2. Member George Chin.
Member Chin, they're partial to Board Member Hall's suggestion. It's a little bit different from Board Member Barmore. With the DSP affiliated pharmacy needs to be in Oregon or located less than 200 miles from the shortest service street from the RDSP.
Member Doyle, can you please repeat that?
2-4, but change the located in Oregon or okay, must be located less than 200 miles.
So actually 2.4 as it's currently written before us.
There's an or, so the
Oh, I see. I apologize. Yes.
so definitely located in Oregon or must be located within 200 miles. As her example, as board member Paul's example was Vancouver, possibly, or any place on the border of Oregon.
Board Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, as technology continues to improve, including AI technology, and the use of remote video surveillance and software. I don't see, I don't think we should make any restrictions. So I favor 2-1, it's just eliminating any kind of distance requirement. I understand the maybe the potential for the need for the pharmacist to physically go to the brick and mortar RDSP. And that, you know, theoretically should be a shorter distance. However, I don't want to place any restrictions because, you know, going forward, I see technology being a big part in the practice of pharmacy and in life in general. So 2-1. Patel?
Patel. My choice is not even here, so
What would that be?
I would just say RDSP affiliated pharmacy must be located in Oregon, and then there is no distance limitation. We are moving towards this innovation, and the RDSP is because of barrier access. I think I just recently read the articles that Oregon is the second worst in the nation for the pharmacy access after Alaska. Alaska has a reason, what reason we have, right? So with that said, I would say no mileage limitation, no restriction on RDSP because we want to create more access, and especially in the rural area. And we said like 200 mile, 120 mile, 100 mile. But here is the thing, when I used to live in Southeast Portland, if I had to go to work at downtown Portland, it's like 2.5 to 3 mile, and it used to take me 45 minutes to 1 hour. I mean, if something happened, well, what are you going to do if you're not within 15 minutes, right? Let's say if there is a break-in, well, you're going to call cop. If there is a fire, well, I'm not rescuing my medication. I'm going to call fire department. There is a tree fall down. I'm not going to, will be the first one who enter in the pharmacy. So I don't see why distance and how that's going to make it safe or anything. But I do say that they have to be, must be located in the Oregon. That's for sure.
Agreement.
I'm torn between the amended 2-4 and 2-1. Is new. Can I be reminded how many RDSPs have been licensed?
We have one licensed and operating.
Licensed and operating. So I don't know if that helps or if you need tiebreaker, but I'm torn between 2-1 and 2-4 as amended with 4 up there. I am still hesitant to keep the affiliated pharmacy in Oregon for the inspection process, which we lose by having an out-of-state pharmacy do it. However, pharmacies are leaving Oregon, and so I hate to be too restrictive and not try to see potential options for solving the problem of the pharmacy shortages in Oregon. So I'm really on the fence between those two. Did have a question for Silvertoni. If the change of the and to the or in 2-4, will that take further investigation regarding the item you talked about?
AAG for Tony, yeah, I think even if you modify that and to an or as shown on the screen currently, where you've got sort of different criteria for Oregon-based versus non-Oregon-based practitioners or licensees, I would still recommend that there be the analysis of the local comp response issue.
Member Chin?
Member Chin, I'm just trying to understand difference between taking out doing the 2-1, just taking that out completely. That opens for out-of-state pharmacies to have RDSPs in Oregon then. And they license, just help me with this whole process. It's a non-licensee. So that out-of-state pharmacy would license with us to have an RDSP in Oregon. Would we be able to, as a or license, would we be able to inspect them and make sure we wouldn't be able to inspect or have any control over how they are doing the RDSP? Would they have to follow our rules for RDSP?
Staff member Hennigan or staff member, or staff member Efferoff?
I'll try and maybe we can tag team to answer the full question. So in regard to, so currently, I think it's important to clarify that the rule does state that if something must be less than 120 miles apart via the shortest surface street route from the RDSP. So currently, out-of-state pharmacies, affiliated pharmacies can register to be able to have an RDSP as the affiliated. So we do, and this is great for a later discussion related to priorities that the board has for policy discussions, have on the docket for discussion related to inspections of outlets, which would include out-of-state outlets. So we had talked before about our statutory requirements and how we inspect outlets. So there could be future discussion depending on how the board would like to go in this direction related to these rules for other previous directions related to policies and inspection processes. So kind of a cascade of events that will need to kind of check and adjust different series of things. And there was another part of the question.
Which is Step Member Hannigan, yes, they would need to be registered in Oregon. Okay, so this is Board Member Chin. So going back to Board Member DeBarmore's success issues. Going with 2.1 and then putting on the docket. And that when we're talking about inspecting, we're talking about inspecting out-of-state people who are actually located here in Oregon. We're not talking about necessarily going out of state to inspect. Because I'm interested in limiting our inspections at least to Oregon. Okay, so given that conversation could occur and you know, we're not going to have 100 RDSPs when we have one right now. We have time to then assess, my opinion, humble, with the 2.1. And allow for us to have that conversation probably sooner than later. When we did our chart thingy, I didn't have this in mind about inspecting outlets, but something to think, I would be in support of 2-1. That in mind.
Board Member Doyle, I was thinking about 2.4 and the change of the word and to an or. And I just wanted to verbalize how I would interpret that. That an RDSP affiliated pharmacy must be located in Oregon or not more than 200 miles away. So that means that you could have an affiliated pharmacy in Astoria and a RDSP in Baker City, for example. But an out-of-state affiliated pharmacy could still have an RDSP in Oregon so long as it's no more than 200 miles. So it could be in an adjacent state, such as Washington, Idaho, California, Nevada. I needed to say that out loud to make sure that we all understood the implication of the and versus the or there. Yes, both that.
So this is Board Member DeBarmore, and what might be helpful is what does the radius from our border look like? 200 miles? If there was, because 200 miles when you're out in the hinterlands is not very much. So if you wanted an RDSP in Lakeview, where there's, I don't even know if there's a pharmacy left in, maybe not. I'm thinking, how far into California is 200 miles? How far, you know,
Is there anything?
is there anything in those? That's exactly my point. You go out to the eastern Oregon to, Joseph. What is 200 miles from there if you're not in Oregon? Is there anything? I don't know, because I'm horrible with distances. Don't know if you're in Joseph. Is it hard to think that maybe your supervising pharmacy might be in Boise? How far is that away? I don't know. But is that unreasonable? Just thinking.
So in summation, there are 3 board members who are advocating for 2.1, that meaning no limitations, and 3 board members that were advocating for being in Oregon, and then 1 board member waffling between those 2. So Board Member Beeman.
Member Beeman, I'm 2.1. And
we
I just don't, if we're already, out of state's already allowed, and then hearing like the Boise to Joseph. It's a shorter drive than from Joseph. So. Really safer, so I'm a 2.1. Thank you.
Thank you for changing your waffle into a pancake. Board Member Halls.
Board Member Hall, I'm fine with 2.1. I know there'll be things down the road, because that could be anywhere in the United States, not just Boise.
Board Member Chin.
Remember, Chin, that being that well versed with all the rules. I think about Canadian pharmacies in Mexico where my patients go all the time. Are those pharmacies allowed to request to be in our DSP?
Board Member Davis or Council Bertoni.
AG Bertoni, I haven't briefed that issue. It's a fascinating question. I don't know the answer. So.
I think that's, so when we open the gate, so to speak, if that's a potential, I think we have to think about that potential just in terms of where I think my peeps get some of their prescriptions.
Board Member Doyle, I think about our staff delegated authority, and I think that would lie outside of the norms that the staff would bring that to the board for approval or disapproval at a future time.
Board member Farmer. So the remote dispensing site is in Oregon. Physically in Oregon. The affiliated pharmacy, so where the pharmacist is providing supervision for the dispensing, may not be in Oregon. So it's, if the drugs are in Oregon, right? The drugs are being dispensed from Oregon. The drugs have to come into Oregon with all of the rules of Oregon and will be inspected on the as a in-state pharmacy, part of the normal licensing process. The affiliated pharmacy, which is providing remote oversight, be a non-resident pharmacy and would still have all the rules of a non-resident pharmacy.
Okay.
So I am unaware if we've ever provided a license out of the country. I think there's limits to that. It has to be within the United States.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was trying to put it into perspective. There's still all that criteria.
Okay.
And the non-resident pharmacies have all the box around them as well.
Board Member Doyle, Staff Member Davis, can you also remind us about the licensing requirement of the pharmacist at the affiliated pharmacy, that that person may or may not be or must be licensed in Oregon?
Yeah, so the pharmacist is providing supervision, direction, and control to the technician, I believe. Question. I think actually in our definitions in RDSP, we say that as a limitation. I'll have to find the rule, but I think that's already in rule that the pharmacist has to be licensed in Oregon.
So it appears in summation that we have a preponderance we have a majority for option 2.1, that being striking limitations with regard to distances between the RDSP affiliated pharmacy and the RDSP itself.
Staff Member Davis, I found it, 855-139-0005 for in one. It's the definition of an RDSP affiliated pharmacy, means a retail drug outlet pharmacy registered in Oregon, where an Oregon licensed pharmacist provides pharmacy services through a telepharmacy system.
Supervising pharmacists would be licensed in Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, there's more rules that all call out Oregon licensed pharmacist about supervision, direction, and control, and telepharmacy. You know, there's multiple instances of requiring that in the rules.
Thank you.
So the proposed rules
There's another rule. I know.
for this, the edit itself would be,
repealed too.
actually just a moment. We still need to talk about para 5 under 0600.
Staff member Melvin, I'm just to clarify, when I file this, if the board motions to send this to rulemaking, if everyone can look at the screen right now, you will see that paren 2, because 2.1 and 2.2, those were just your choices to work through this today. I'm going to file it as we're striking 2, and then you're going to see everything else be renumbered below it. So you aren't going to see these choices in the filing. I just want to be clear.
So what we in the public will see is on line 10.
Correct.
Do we need to address pair 5 in 0600?
Yes, we do still have one more rule to discuss in this package. So 855-139-0600, approximately lines 102 for those on the phone. While considering these options for amending the rule we just discussed, the agency staff noticed a gap in the rules and proposes for the board to consider an amendment to address this gap. So in this rule, it says a retail drug outlet, RDSP, must not, and we are proposing to add, permit a pharmacist to verify prescriptions for dispensing when any component of the telepharmacy system is not functioning. Audiovisual communication systems replicate the in-person interaction between two people, whether that is the pharmacist to technician or the pharmacist to patient. If the system's down, then the pharmacist can use the phone to do the verbal portion, like of counseling and talking to the patient. And possibly a surveillance system if you had a really good one, with video and audio that actually like really well communicated. But the telepharmacy system is the system of telecommunications technologies that enables monitoring, documenting, and recording of the delivery of pharmacy services at the remote location, by which an electronic method must include the use of audio and video, still image capture, and store and forward. The entire RDSP concept relies on that telepharmacy system working to perform dispensing and delivery. In fact, the definitions of RDSP, affiliated pharmacy, and RDSP and OAR 855-139-0005 include the use of a telepharmacy system. So, I mean, the definitions that even build the basis say that you're using a telepharmacy system, but if the telepharmacy system is down, then no prescription should be prepared, dispensed, or delivered. We also have terms for surveillance system that replicates the in-person supervision of a technician, like audio and video, and allows you to be remote, but still doesn't give you like the pictures of the drugs and the different things. So we were looking at potentially adding a new prohibition, just not to permit a pharmacist to verify prescriptions for dispensing when that actual telepharmacy system that takes the pictures, that you show the labels, that all the things, that is not working. Back to you, Board President Doyle, for discussion.
Board Member Doyle, we've been in discussion with Board Member DeBarmore.
Board Member DeBarmer. So if audio is not working, a pharmacist not check refill prescriptions, cannot verify refill prescriptions. If audio is not working, a pharmacist cannot verify new prescriptions.
I can't see the pills.
If audio is not working.
We're not talking about audio, we're talking about the telepharmacy system.
He is monitoring, documenting, and recording of the delivery of pharmacy services by an electronic method, which includes the use of audio and video. And it says if any component is not functioning. So if audio is not functioning, they have to shut any portion of any service down. So they can't check any prescription if audio is not working. So they couldn't even shut the pickup window down, but continue to process prescriptions, get them done until the audio is corrected. That's what that reads.
I see what you're saying. We were thinking more about the audio visual communication system, like, cause that's a separate defined system. And that would be still working and that would be fine. I see what you're saying. This needs to be worked on a little bit. Okay. It's good feedback. Thank you.
Member Hall?
Member Hall, yeah, I just would like to tease that out a little bit more.
Member Beaman?
Remember Beaman had nothing to add.
Member Doyle, I support the overall intent of this rule, acknowledging that it will be edited between that by staff through staff mechanisms before it goes to rulemaking.
Staff member Davis, yes. Oh, looks like AAG Bertoni might have something to say.
For Tony, put it, board member DeBarmore, if the language read, permitted for pharmacists to verify prescriptions for dispensing when any component of the telepharmacy system necessary for the pharmacist to adequately verify is not functioning.
Member DeBarmore. Well, that would make sense. And to me, that would seem like it would be common sense for a pharmacist and we wouldn't need to have those words.
But I hear you on those parts, because right, like, oh, but at my memo, I can't forward a voicemail. That's not working, but that's not really the issue. If we included that language, that additional language, that any component of the telepharmacy system necessary to verify the prescription. Not functioning with that, so.
It hurts my heart that we would have to put those words in rule. I'm sorry to say, I am sad we're having this conversation. I'm sad we're having this conversation. If a pharmacist said they verified a prescription when they couldn't see the prescription, they did not verify the prescription. That is unprofessional conduct. We already have all those rules somewhere else. Don't need to add more. That's self-explanatory. And if you don't know that as a pharmacist, you should not be a pharmacist. We have bigger problems.
Staff member Melvin, thank you for adding the yellow highlighted section to para 5 on the new line 102. Board member Chin.
I am going to agree with board member DeBarmore in regards to common sense practice of a professional licensee. Not need 5.
Member Joyce.
Yeah, board member Joyce. So, I mean, that was my first thought is like, you're disallowing the pharmacist from using professional judgment and common sense when you're adding a rule like this with all this, with the specificity of this rule. I mean, obviously, if the telepharmacy system is not working and the pharmacist cannot verify a medication, and they wouldn't do it, right? That's the professional judgment of the pharmacist. So I don't even think this rule is necessary. I would hope that the pharmacist is using their professional judgment. If they're not able to safely verify medication, then don't verify medication. But putting this in rule, I just think it's not necessary.
Member Patel.
Member Patel, yeah, absolutely. Number 5 is definitely unnecessary. And sometimes, like, as a pharmacist, practicing pharmacist, sometimes I do DUR, like after operation hours, like DUR or pharmacist verification has nothing to do with the telepharmacy. And most of the time there is a out of state, there is a just the pharmacists, they're just doing the DUR. It has, I don't think so any has to do with the telepharmacy. And we have the rules for the technician to do the product verification. So I don't know why it's here, but yes, absolutely. Strike down number 5. Thank you.
Member Hemmings.
Board member Hemmings, no comment. Could we take a break after this?
Yes, we are planning to take a break after this. Staff member Melvin, can you please scroll back up to line 10?
Member Hemmings, sorry, I have one comment. But board member Joyce, when you said that you don't think that you need this rule, are you saying to strike the whole thing or just remove 5?
5.
Board Member Doyle, on the screen before you, you have line number 10, which is the revised text, which is part of Rule 0200. Is there a motion to move to send proposed rule OAR 855-139-0200 to the July 23rd, 2024 rulemaking hearing?
So move, Board Member Ching.
Seconded, Board Member Joyce.
Motion has been moved by Board Member Joyce, seconded by Board Member Chin, seconded by Board Member Joyce. I'll now call roll vote to approve sending proposed rule OAR 855-139-0200 to the July 23rd, 2024 rulemaking hearing. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin,
Yes.
Board Member Beeman,
Yes.
Board Member DeBarmore, Board Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Hemmons.
Point of clarification, is this the same package as we were just talking about, the RSD, blah, blah, blah? Okay. Yes.
Board Member Joyce,
Yes.
Board Member Patel,
Member Patel, yes.
motion passes. Staff Member Melvin, can you please scroll down to line 102-ish? Sorry, now line 76 on the screen for the public, which is within Rule 0600. Is there a motion to move to send proposed rule OAR 855-139-0600 to the July 23rd, 2024 rulemaking hearing? There is no motion, so motion fails. We will now take a break. It is 10:12. We will resume board activities at 10:30. Thank you.